every day that I like to listen to. Mr. Paul?
This is Frank Gaffney with the Secure Freedom Minute. Candidate Donald Trump promised to build a wall along our southern border. As president, he's intent on keeping that promise. But he has been blocked at every turn by congressional Democrats and open border Republicans. So, Mr. Trump is prepared once again to take his case to the American people. He says the government will be shut down if Congress doesn't provide the resources required to construct the wall. This could be our last chance to secure the border. If opponents of doing so enlarge their hold on the House and or Senate this fall, not only is the president likely to be impeached, he's sure to be defied on the wall. By making a secure border a voting issue, though, he may not only get the wall funded, he might just turn out enough voters to protect his presidency as well as our country. This is Frank Gaffney.
So, Frank, you basically summed up the last few days of the show, to be honest with you. These have been the topics I've been hottest on, which is that we need our wall. The president needs to campaign for the wall heading into the November elections. We need to demand that we get it. We need to hold folks like Mitch McConnell accountable for not wanting to deliver it to the Trump voter base. And most importantly, if you guys are serious about it, you can't stay home in November. And if you do, there's no chance of the wall, and you're definitely going to get impeachment. And that's pretty much where we are in a nutshell.
I was channeling my inner Alex Marlowe.
All right.
Look, the point is that these are certain indisputable truths, Alex, and I think that what President Trump understood when he was a candidate and what he understands now as president is the border security, or the lack thereof, which has now been really reduced to this two-word, synopsis of the wall.
The wall
is an overwhelmingly popular issue with Americans. And I think they are overwhelmingly convinced that if we don't do something to secure that southern border and to enforce the rest of our immigration laws and to ensure that particularly the interior enforcement issues are addressed, that we are going to find ourselves losing our country, losing our sovereignty, losing the rule of law itself, losing, the chance of there being a real choice in a democratic polity, because essentially we will have had illegal aliens in many cases and others become the sort of guarantors of the electoral control of a party that is indifferent to our security, homeland and national, and keeping our borders open. So, I couldn't be more pleased and proud of the work you're doing at Breitbart to expose this, and happy to be your wingman.
Thank you, Frank, and I appreciate that. And it's very heartening because I'm seeing a lot of people react to the content in the show and the content on Breitbart, and it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But as I said also on the show, it is sort of bittersweet in a way, because I thought we'd have the wall by now, and I just can't help but replay the game footage and see when the president's first moves, instead of probably firing James Comey and building the wall and repealing and replacing Obamacare, we went with this sort of Paul Ryan Obamacare plan that failed and really got the presidency off to a rocky start. And I don't think he's fully recovered from that. And it's very tempting to go back and start relitigating early 2017. But we can't really do that. We got to move ahead. So
could I just make a suggestion about something that he could do right now?
Please.
Literally right now. I mentioned it before, I think, and you're probably familiar with the concept, Alex, but there's an interim step, and not a replacement for the wall, but something the president could do literally at any moment to restart, particularly along the Texas border with Mexico, a system that's already in place there. It's called Blue Servo. These are military-grade cameras that work all hours of the day and night, all weather, that are along some of the most heavily trafficked crossing points. And if they're simply reactivated we will begin having eyes on again along those border points. And here's the really brilliant thing about this, Alex. And it was working for like 4 or 5 years, then it was stood down inexplicably by then Governor Rick Perry. But the feed from those cameras has been put up on the internet. And we've had millions of people in this country and around the world putting eyes on to help enforce the border, patrols efforts to then intercept these people. They're getting 92% intercept rates as a result of this system working very effectively. It's tremendously inexpensive because it's basically in place. You could expand it across the rest of the southern border for chump change. And it could be something the president could do, I believe, on his own authority immediately, that would begin making a difference while he presses for the border to be properly secured with a real wall where it's appropriate.
I love that, and luckily I know that folks who inside the White House are paying attention to the show, so hopefully they're taking that seriously, because that does seem like a valid option, and that's why we rely on Frank Gaffney, who's a pro in this stuff. You can go to securefreedom.org, counterjihad.com, or his website. Also check out the aforementioned Secure Freedom Minute. Frank, a couple other topics for today beyond the wall, and of course we could do 19 hours on the wall every day. But let's talk about North Korea. The president has been making a huge effort to denuclearize the North Korean peninsula, which I think would make him a historic figure if he's able to achieve it. But there's a report out this week that North Korea is working on new missiles, according to a United States spy agency. Do you think this is true? Is this accurate? How concerned are you about this?
The trouble is, Alex, that it's probably true. And what really should be the focus of our conversations and policy debate is that's what we're able to see. That's what we're able to monitor. And with regard to this, and with uranium reprocessing and other aspects of their missile and nuclear program that are above ground, in which we see evidence that business as usual is taking place, that's worrying enough. The trouble is, these are folks, the North Korean regime and military, have been geniuses and very, very rigorous practitioners of the art of deep underground tunneling. And there's almost certainly a whole host of missile factories and, nuclear processing facilities and nuclear weapons manufacturing sites that we can't monitor at all. And my concern is if they're being as in our face as they are with the stuff that we can monitor, you can bet that there's more going on even than that. And it's deeply worrying. And I think the president is right to be trying to, hold the, chairman of of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, accountable. But he's going to have to up the game, I think, because I believe this fellow is increasingly calculating that he can get away with this. At the very least, simply do what he's done historically, which is, string the Americans along and continue doing the sorts of things that threaten us with impunity.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts, by the way, on some of the trade negotiations that are taking place and whether or not how that's going to affect our national security, Frank?
Well, I think they do. The principal game here is China. As you know, the president's policy, I think it's really the Trump doctrine that's emerging, is he has got to come to grips with the threat that is posed by China. I've increasingly concluded, as have many of the people that I consider, the real duty experts on the subject, that China's been at war with us at least since about 1991, when the Cold War ended and Deng Xiaoping, then the Communist Party leader, said, hey, now we're in a Cold War with the United States, only we're going to win, unlike the Soviets. Right. This is the sort of thing that is manifesting itself most obviously in economic warfare against us, which is what the president is trying to contend with in terms of trade and other measures. But it has a whole host of national security implications. And so his trade policies vis-a-vis the Europeans and others elsewhere around the world, I think, will be ultimately in the service of trying to isolate and counter communist China, and that does seem to me to be a paramount national security priority.
All right, it's Frank Gaffney, president of the Center for Security Policy. Go to securefreedom.org, counterjihad.com as well. Frank, talk to you next week, brother.
Thank you, bye.